keep it dialed. We're talking about AI today. Should be a great session. We have Peter from Players First. He's going to get things kicked off. This is all about AI, how that happens. At the end, we'll talk about the Terminator movies and things like that as well. So we'll have a kind of Q&A that we can wrap with, and then we have Pete from Advanced Sports that will be talking about AI as well. So I'll turn it over to Players First, and we'll get things kicked off.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks, and thanks for everyone for showing up at this hour, and end of the long day, I guess. So, yeah, just a show of hands, who's using some form of AI at your facility right now? Anyone? Oh yeah. Okay, so you've got a little bit of a feel for it. Is it around ChatGPT? Who's using ChatGPT? Yeah. Okay. I mean, personally, that is just a great tool to just do anything, pretty much. If you're writing an email and you can just throw it in there. It's quite incredible how the technology's become. And within Players First, so if you don't know about our company, we do a lot of member guest tournament surveys and also membership surveys for golf associations. So if you've ever sent out a survey, you're probably going to ask some questions which have a text-based response. Maybe some comment from a member on their feedback on their membership or whatever. And those text comments are kind of hard to decipher, right? I mean, for some clubs and some tournaments, you'll have hundreds of these. And there's a lot of really good information in those the comments, but getting a feel for what they mean aggregate has been really difficult. I mean, in the past, we would typically export all that text to a spreadsheet, and then you'd start searching around or put it into a word cloud or something like that that would give you the themes or the what all that text was actually saying. But with AI now, you can feed that into an AI tool of some description, and then just start asking it questions, which is really quite incredible. So with Players First, we started implementing this around a lot of the comments that we get from surveys. And we just actually, if you're a Players First user, you might see it in your dashboard. There's a kind of a beta, but we put it out there just to see how people would start using AI in a golf kind of context. And we've had quite a lot of traction with it. So we know just within, I think probably the last month or so, we've had over 2,500 users using it. And they're just asking the co-pilot, I call it, questions about the data that's in their surveys. They keep coming back to use it, and what's really nice, if you use ChatGPT to produce any kind of output, you type in your question, you ask it, you can continue asking questions and refine the response. It's the same thing here, and so the feedback from it has been really good. People getting a lot of value out of it, and also just the speed that you can access the data. So just to give you a little bit of an example of what it can do. So the Bermuda Golf Association uses our membership survey, and they did one and got a lot of feedback. And I just went into their dashboard and asked this question, what new ideas were suggested out of their feedback. And it came back with all of this kind of little summary of probably several hundred comments. So they suggested several new ideas, website improvements, more friendly website. You can see there's little footnotes here too. So with AI, of course, it's do you really trust the response that you're getting out of this thing, right? Where is it based from? So if you hover over these things, it'll actually link back to a specific member comment that was resulting from that. So you can start to see, okay, what was the input into the model, and what, how relevant was that comment? So these little footnotes show you that. So increased social events, tournament formats, enhanced communication, junior golf. That was, a very simple question, and within, a second you've got kind of the output from a lot of text that would normally take probably an hour to sit through and get that kind of feedback. So it's very powerful in terms of our application to text-based information. So, and this is so we work a lot with AGAs around the world, federations around the world as well. So this was a comment that we got back from someone from England Golf. But I mean, this kind of sums it up. It really helps them kind of summarizing that information. And often there is a lot of nuggets, really good feedback in those text comments that can be easily exposed for this. So this is kind of our implementation of that that we're finding is extremely valuable. So you don't, if you've got text that's not in Players First, there are other tools you can feed it into something like ChatGPT and start asking questions in a similar way. But we're trying to make it easier and keep you, in the same dashboard, the same kind of environment where you can easily query this kind of information. So that's my little example. Throw it back to Pete.
Yeah, we'll switch gears here. We'll go to the other Pete, and we'll jump into his presentation on his side of the house.
Hi, everybody. So thank you. As Peter just mentioned, when it comes to AI, whether you're using ChatGPT, which is obviously probably one of the more popular frameworks right now. If you Google things, you probably started to see Gemini pop up on your phone. The Apple, the new iPhone 16 has Apple Intelligence, right? That's probably going to make it even more prevalent. We actually also use, with what we do with advanced sports, right now we're using GPT frameworks. That doesn't mean we're going to hitch our wagon to one or the other. Just means that for right now, we feel like we get the most value and kind of bang for our buck out of GPT. So advanced sports, essentially, I like to always qualify, the main difference between when you hear the term generative AI versus just, general sort of AI, what we hear about all the time right now, right? All the time. Most of the time it includes people rolling their eyes like, oh, here we go with AI again. Generative AI, to just totally dumb it down in its simplest form, is essentially just AI that's trained. Who is it trained by? It's trained by us. It's trained by human beings. And essentially, with what we're doing with advanced sports, we're trying to, utilize generative AI to help solve problems. In some cases, problems that are very tedious and tiresome for us to get through. And by the way, a lot of the functionality that you'll utilize AI in your everyday life, maybe you already are today, it's helping you do things like Gemini, helping you write emails faster, right? It's helping you organize spreadsheets. It's helping you do these types of things that would typically take a long amount of time. Well, now we have the opportunity to kind of, use the technology to help us be more efficient. That's the whole purpose. It's not like the bots are coming to take our jobs. It's let's try to utilize the technology to be more efficient with what we're doing every day. So one of the main causes that I'm trying to use within advanced sports is helping to simplify one of what I think is one of the most complex problems that exist right now in the sports industry and also in the golf industry, and that is trying to find a job, okay? When I talk to a lot of folks between the job seekers and the hiring employers, it's very, I for the life of me, I can't understand why in 2024 it's this difficult to connect talent to employers that want to meet that talent, right? If you've looked for a job, and I don't need hands or anything, but if you've looked for or wanted to pursue a job opportunity in this day and age, it usually requires going online and literally applying to hundreds of jobs. In most cases, you will hear back from very few of those employers. Or if you do, you'll get probably some automated email, right? That isn't really personalized at all. It kind of begs the question, is a human being ever actually looking at my resume? And then from the employer standpoint, it also, this is one of the reasons why I'm trying to hit the sports industry, particularly the golf industry. I don't doubt for 1 minute that you guys have the potential to have applicants applying to your jobs that you post every day. I highly doubt anyone in here has a quantity when it comes to people applying for jobs. If you post a job, most of the time, I would love to work in golf. I would love to work for a pro sports team. It's the same type of deal. People are interested in those types of opportunities. I would argue, however, though, that if you have 200 applications, you're only going to have a very small number of those applications that are exactly what you would consider to be qualified candidates that you'd be looking for. And who has the time, quite honestly, to comb through 200 applications? So one of the things that we're trying to do with generative AI is obviously train technology in order to be able to review those applications in a timely manner, but then not just sort of send out automated emails to all the candidates, but actually give them verified, personalized feedback on why they didn't get pushed to the next round or why they maybe did get an opportunity. The whole point, and a lot of people think that what we're doing is essentially, finding jobs for everybody. I don't want to oversell anything in terms of technology can't just land you an opportunity. But what it can do is exponentially increase your chances of success of getting through some of these automated applicant tracking systems. When you apply to a job online, some ATS, applicant tracking system, is scraping your resume for keywords and phrases that it's looking for probably from the job description, determining whether or not it should actually move you to that next rounder. Okay? So if you get bounced out, there's a good chance a human being never actually looked at your resume. And that is one of the things that I see that's so frustrating for so many people that are out there trying to break into the sports industry. So just a couple, hot button recruitment issues that I kind of run into every day with what I do. Algorithmic bias is probably number one. Again, these are the types of tools that are not perfect. Generative AI is trained. So it's only as good, the output is only as good as the input that we as human beings put into it. Algorithmic bias is a huge issue right now when it comes to generative AI. And a lot of that comes from, the results used to train the algorithms can lead to discriminatory practices that unfairly disadvantage certain groups of people. Again, it's trained on what we're putting in, but even unknowingly, if we're putting in certain qualifications, we might be setting the algorithm up to sort of discriminate without even knowing it. Again, it can be addressed, but it's one of the issues going on right now. One of the other big ones, AI-generated resumes and cover letters. If you have anybody that on your staff that is under the age of, I'll call it, 25, there's a good chance that they were using ChatGPT in college. Okay? There's a good chance that they've gotten used to using generative AI tools throughout the last few years, whether in some cases, taking a shortcut to write a paper in college or, pass an exam or what have you. The generated resumes and cover letters are essentially just that. They're taking, essentially their experience, putting it through, and I won't say that it's as much of an issue with resumes, because resumes is just a list of your skills and experience, right? You either have it or you don't. They are using it to generate cover letters too, and I don't know if anybody requires cover letters in here when it comes to people applying to jobs, but you can kind of tell it's one of these things when you know when you see an AI-generated cover letter, okay? The last one, which I think is, kind of, again, much, call it Gen Z, what have you, the white font TikTok hack. So, again, a lot of younger people that have spent now the last 4 to 5 years using generative AI, ChatGPT all the time, are looking for kind of the hacks in order to be able to make sure that the resume gets seen, make sure that they get through an ATS system. And like everything else that is usually bad, comes from TikTok, right? There's a TikTok hack that's been done where people, mostly younger people, that are applying to jobs are actually copy and pasting the job description for the job which they're applying for, literally copy and pasting it onto their resume, usually at the very bottom or the second page, what have you, in very, very, very small font and in all white font so that it's invisible to the naked eye, which is causing all sorts of ATS issues because now those applicant tracking systems are picking up not just keywords and phrases, they're literally picking up the job description that's copy and pasted in the person's resume. And that is obviously giving people a leg up on getting through. I see a few people not like, that's a pretty smart idea. But it's getting people through to the next round, whether they're qualified or not, because they're literally, they have the job description in their resume. It's driving recruiters nuts, okay? It's driving managers nuts because they don't, when they look at their ATS system and they get their list of qualified candidates, they're looking at the resume saying, this person's not qualified. But they realize that they did the white font TikTok hack. So these are types of things that, again, I don't want to make it all sunshine and rainbows with AI. We have a lot of things that we need to tackle here. But I will say that one of the great things about the technology is that it is ever evolving. And as we know, just as if we sat in this room 30 years ago and started talking about the internet, this could be in a place 30 years from now that is beyond any of our comprehensions today. So it's ever evolving, and obviously this is sort of just scratching the surface to what we can do.
Great, thank you. Before we jump in, are there any questions for Peter or Pete? Players first. I had two questions for Peter, actually. Peter, can you walk me through, in Players First, we talked about like text-based things, but are you guys able to break down like numeric data?
Yeah, so I think that's the next thing we're looking at. When you get a lot of numeric scoring type information on various different touch points within your events or within your membership base, we have a dashboard that kind of breaks it down. But AI again has a lot of capability in terms of being able to be trained to look at certain correlations within that data. So we kind of think that that's maybe the next step in terms of what we can do with AI and particularly survey data. Again, to try and draw out those insights in a kind of a simpler, more intuitive way. I think, if you don't have a background in customer experience management or all of this kind of methodology, it just has the opportunity to simplify all of that and give you kind of the insights that you need without having to kind of be, know about statistical correlations and all of this kind of stuff. You're trying to drive improvements within your process. And so, again, this will be the next step in terms of how we try and apply AI technology to survey data and keep driving that forward. So this is a kind of I think a more advanced step in terms of training the models to look at, to understand, what a typical golfer journey looks like and the different parameters that go into that. But that's, I think, coming pretty quickly as we move forward with AI technology. So exciting stuff, and again, aimed at improving your productivity when it comes to understanding the data and taking steps, taking action based on those results.
One follow-up to that, talk to us about bots and chat support type stuff as it relates to AI.
Yeah, so this is a kind of a huge area. A lot of companies getting into these autoresponders and actually, instead of having kind of fairly mechanical, logic-based, responders, AI is going to make that a whole lot more intuitive. From our perspective, one of the areas that, again, is a very important part of the survey process is, if you've got a member that has submitted some comments or maybe they might give you a detractor response. In other words, they're not likely to recommend your organization. There's some comments associated with that. Being able to analyze those comments and maybe respond back to that member in a somewhat automated fashion. Because a lot of people, when they fill out a survey, they think the data goes into a black hole, right? You know, who's actually reading it? If you're not responding back to that member or to that participant in your tournament, it's kind of a lost opportunity to kind of bridge that connection and kind of really cement that relationship going forward. And so again, AI can help with some auto responses based on the feedback that the member is given. So that's also another opportunity, I think, to drive, again, just kind of simplify the process and improve productivity around some of these key areas of the survey process. So again, something that we're looking into in terms of our roadmap going forward.
Great. Real quick show of hands again. Who in the room's leveraging AI at some level? We'll go right here. How are we using it? Yes, sir.
It's mostly ChatGPT.
Yep.
But I mean, I'm using it for if I need to write a letter, that to a member club or to to one of our members that reaches out and we have a certain issue. I've used it to help come up with performance improvement plans. I've used it to help come up with meeting agendas. I mean, there's just so it's like it's endless what you can do with it. And the more I've shared with it about the Maryland State, the more it knows. Which that's the scary part. I kind of thought all the little open tabs were independent, but it remembers everything that I've plugged into it.
One thing that, just to hit on that, one thing that we see a lot of individuals using it for is like a personal assistant type role, right? So don't limit, and that's a perfect point, right? Like the more you teach it, the more you educate it, the more intelligent it's going to be. If you don't currently leverage it and you're punching stuff in, it's gonna sound like a computer when it talks to you, right? Like it's not gonna be great. The point that was made there, I use it a bunch. It's so lazy, but I do it all the time. If I get like a long email, I'm not gonna read it. I'll just pop it in there and I'll say, give me the summary of this and the top 3 things I gotta do from it. I'm done, right? Like things like that. One thing we see used a lot, and playing on like the job search kind of area, is when you have new people or interns in your golf associations. An intern writing an email is a lot different than an experienced person in your organization writing an email, right? Probably night and day different. It's going to take you a couple months to teach that intern how to write the email that you want them to write, right? Versus you going to ChatGPT or your AI tool, hey, can you pump me out this email, here's what I need to do. Now you have an email template tool to hand off to your interns and new level employees that they can leverage. We call it reputation management. You don't have the email fly out the door where you're like, damn, I wish I could have held that one or pull it back, right? You can kind of control the narrative there. So we see it a lot on the junior, more green intern employee level and the personal assistant level that was just mentioned there. One thing I'll touch on here too, similar to what Peter talked about, is it's not just limited to a conversation back and forth. So again, I'm a little bit lazy, but in the words of Bill Gates, I'll hire the lazy guy because he'll find the easy way to do it, right? So I will pump in Excel spreadsheets and I'll bring in data that I want it to give me things from, financial audits, different stuff like that. I don't want to pay someone to do it. I can have a computer do it and I'll get my stuff that I need, right? So we look at that. One other thing I'll touch on while we're kind of in the numerical side of the house is in a couple other sections, I see some faces here that were going to be talked about better understanding your membership and what's going on. If you have a lot of data, which you do because you have all players in Golf Genius that play in tournaments and you have these CRMs and stuff, if you can get that into ChatGPT, it can very clearly tell you the different demographic groups that are being pulled from your membership now. So you don't have to do a 17-week-long analysis on your membership, drop it in there and ask it to pull up the key demographic groups based on what it sees. Again, if the data's there, it's going to be good. If you have three rows, you're going to get age, sex, and first name and last name, right? That's about it. So the more you give it, the more use cases you have for it, but we see it in the personal assistant, the data management, but also like better understanding things that are more complex that you might be throwing people and hours at. Now you have this kind of doing the front end work for you. And I will say, it's sometimes not 100% there. You want to definitely double check the work with the data side of the house, but it's a lot closer than you think.
I thought of one more quick one, because I think we've all dealt with this at different times. We were going through a big bylaw change. Basically, the whole bylaws had to be rewritten. And I had 3 or 4 board members that had input and feedback, and so we had 6 different documents going. I was ready to pull my hair out. And plugging all that in there, it could summarize, you know,
Money, yep.
it could summarize everything, and then it could spit out, you know, a version with all of their feedback.
Yep.
Without me, you know, it would have taken hours to do that.
One thing that I leveraged a lot, we have our team leverage it a bunch, is especially when you go into like ChatGPT and some of the other ones, you want to, it sounds so stupid, you got to tell it who it's operating like, right? So it's not just like, hey, I want you to do this. Like, I get pretty good. I'm like, you're in top ranked attorney in South Carolina. I need you to pump, boom, 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 boom. Like, I like hype it up. And then I'm like, you're going to take all this and you're going to incorporate it in this, and there it is, right? Like, I didn't have to do it, it's all there. And to your point, we see it a lot on like copyright stuff, where I have 17 versions and modifications. I'll just take it and be like, hey, here's the changes that need to be made. Can we implement this in this document? Another big one, I don't know if you guys have thought about this, if you're going through a rebranding process or your tone has changed, things like that, you have all this legacy copy that might sound dated, a little bit older. I mean, maybe we want to make it younger and more energized. We don't need to spend hours writing it. We just need to pump it in and say, hey, can we put some life into this copy? We need to talk about X, Y, and Z. We want to incorporate more of this field. Again, it's not going to be perfect the first time. You're going to have to like, no, this sucks. We got to change this. We don't want to talk about this, but it's not you physically writing it and sitting there for hours doing it. I always say it's going to give you 75% of the way there. You're going to have to put the last finishing touches on it, but it's going to do a lot of the legwork that you probably would have had a junior member do, or you're burning hours to do it. Now you can get that done in half the time and kind of implement that from there. Yes, sir.
So ChatGPT I've started to use for all sorts of things, and you're exactly right on all of that. One of the things, so I'm not with our foundation, and you know, there's a whole different tone and way to communicate with people, separate from sales, separate from whatever. And there's certain authors or copywriters that I follow, and I will, you know, tell it I want this, and I want it in the style of X, you know, copywriter. And you'd be amazed at what it puts out, and it is like 75% there, and then you have to modify it. The other thing, the other 2 tools that I've used frequently is, let's say you get the fresh P&L, and I don't, you know, I need to know a couple points right now before somebody asks me. I'll throw it in there, and it'll give me, you know, ask for the top 5 points.
Yep.
You're down here, you're up here, you're flat here, whatever it is.
Yep.
The third tool I use that is huge. I hate meeting minutes. Who doesn't?
Oh yeah.
I hooked up Fireflies to $20 a month to Teams, Zoom, comes on automatically. Everybody says hi to Fireflies. No, they know I have it on there because it comes up as a participant. But then it not only does it record it, but it gives you all sorts of play-by-play, timestamps.
Yep.
You can ask for a short version recap, a full, you know, whatever dictation. It's nuts.
Yep.
But it saves so much time. Unreal money.
Piggyback on that, there's a couple of tools. There's one that we leverage called Otter.ai, which is great, but Zoom's got one. It's not great, but it's kind of built into Zoom. one thing that we've seen a couple of, and we've encouraged like our clients, not just you guys, but others, when we have meetings and you have like large meetings, we'll even just let Zoom run. If it's in person, we'll just let it run, because now no one's taking notes.
Yeah.
So the meeting's just running, you end the call, it's all there. I'll go one step further, I'll take those notes, I'll throw it into ChatGPT, and I'll be like, hey, I got John, Greg, Sarah, and they do X, Y, and Z. Take these off, and I need emails that can almost get them started doing these tasks.
Yeah.
And then I just, again, it's like super lazy, but I'll just copy and paste, send the emails out, and life's kind of easy at that point.
I don't know how to do it, but with Fireflies, when it's integrated with Teams,
Yep.
it'll recognize their name.
Assign things out.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I don't know how it's done, but
Yep.
yeah.
It's very, very powerful. And again, like, if you're not using it right now, I always say just start using it as like a personal assistant. Just like daily things that you don't want to do. Where you probably heard it 100 times. I say about time, I wish I had an assistant, right? Like I wish someone could do this. Well, you did. For $20 a month, you got it now. Who else leveraging it? Don't make me shake hands again. Yes.
So I'm coming from more of the marketing and comms standpoint,
Yep.
and I will use it pretty consistently for email newsletters.
Perfect.
Take this blog post, give me a 3-sentence summary, subject lines, even like metadata.
Yep, I was
It
just
can
gonna say
just be like incredibly tedious. It's like just quickly summarize this. But the big help for me this year is at Oregon we had our centennial anniversary. So part of my mandate was writing articles and celebrating that history, but having only been at the association for a year and a half, pretty difficult to find out going back to 1924, so I was able to take a lot of historical documents, plug them in and consolidate, write me a 500-word article about 1924 to 1933, work on it, get it published, and then as long as you're staying within that same sort of framework, the next month I go in and say, cool, now write me one from 34 to 43, building upon those same thematic elements, so that it, over the course of the year I had 10 decade pieces that all had a similar sort of tone and feel that felt like they were coming from the same person who, in all honesty, 2 years ago had no freaking clue what the history of the association was. So that was super helpful.
Take that one step further for like marketing comm people, and again, you have to start small and then build it up, and you gotta like take perspective on it too. So what we'll do sometimes is when we first start with like a brand new client, say one of you hire us and you're like, audit my marketing stuff. We'll all look at it, like your most recent stuff. I'll do what you do. I'll actually go in, I'll take emails from random years, I'll grab them as a PDF, I want like the physical image, I'll bring those in, and because all my stuff is all marketing driven, I'll literally be like, I need you to look at these and tell me what's wrong, what I'm optimizing. I'm gonna know your most current stuff, but I wanna see like the bad, deep hidden stuff that you don't know about, right? I wanna say like, hey, how would you take this and bump up engagement? How are you gonna affect open rates? Is it messaging? Is it subject line? And it will give me a very clear report on like, hey, these 3 emails, this was the problem that we would recommend, here's how we would do this. Maybe the images were off, but again, it won't go there right away, but you can quickly start to just be like, okay, well, let me jump into those 3 because there's a bigger problem there. Again, it might be wrong, it could be correct, but at least it's pointing you in an area and it's giving you tangible things to then do. And often, if you guys are on HubSpot or MailChimp, I will literally be like, you are a HubSpot expert, you are fully trained. I'll drop links in and be like, here's knowledge-based things for best practices. Look at these emails and tell me what would need to be done. And we'll rip that back out and give you the feedback on it. Yes,
So just to clarify both of those comments, are you then taking the PDF and feeding that into ChatGPT
yeah,
as a PDF?
it's got to have that in there, yep.
Okay, so it's basically an image reader at this point.
Yeah, I'll have it fully, like, and again, that's why you gotta check it. Sometimes if you say without goofy, it's not gonna look at it. Or if you put too many in, it gets lazy and it will like look at every other one. So I'll like bring them in, and then again, I'm not using it based off of like my final report. It's just like, hey, like we need to jump into these areas and take a closer look now. but it's a lot easier than going through each individual campaign. And again, you guys are already building out these emails, but you might want to look at it and say, hey, like, I'll even throw in there sometimes be like, I love this newsletter that so-and-so makes. Look at that, tell me how I can make mine more like that and give you some feedback on that, right? Just little tips and tricks that it gives you. It's another perspective that you might not have when it's analyzing the stuff. Yes, sir.
So we have a club for junior golfers that have aged out, so from 19 to 25.
Yep.
And traditional emails don't seem to engage them, so we did an A/B test using AI to engage them, see which one works best.
Yep.
One of the subject lines even dropped in a golf emoji of some sort.
All right.
So testing that, we did see better open rates, click-through rates in those emails. We are using HubSpot, so like I said, for the interns who don't have the best writing skills compared to a seasoned veteran, we do use snippets a lot, but with the AI tool, we've gone back to our snippet library and ran through AI to see if we can improve them.
Yeah, that's a home run. Yes, sir.
On subject lines for emails, they're becoming so tricky to catch stuff. I've started to use it where I'll ask it to come up with a good, subject line based on the email content and then how I want the tone to be.
Yeah.
And so then it'll generate some subject lines for you.
Yep. Take that one step further now. If you're on, which that's perfect, if you have HubSpot, I think MailChimp has it now, to the point that was made here, you can do an email side by side, test it, and then it'll actually then show you which ones start to perform better as you send out, and then you can feed that back in and go, hey, you in the past gave me this, my marketing provider gave me this performed better, can we do things more in this vein? And then you can start to leverage it out there too. Who else is using that? Yes, sir.
Some people in our office use ChatGPT, but I've been using the Microsoft Copilot as more the integrated personal assistant type. And that's been really useful since it integrates so well with Outlook, Teams, and all the Microsoft products. I don't have to go to some separate entity like ChatGPT and enter it. It essentially just gets it all from there.
Yep.
And I did some work to try to create my own framework on it, but that's been a lot more work than I realized how much it was.
Touch, right?
Yeah, going to take just to do that. So I kind of put that in the back burner and use it as it is right now.
Yep. Love that. Who else? There's more hands first time, guys. Come on.
I guess I can add one more thing onto it too, is especially being a team of one, we're wearing a ton of different hats. So even if it's we need to send a spreadsheet off to the Pacific Northwest so they can send out the magazine. Sometimes that data isn't all perfect, and even not as like an Excel expert, it's like how it's relatively straightforward. Like, oh, how do I remove dukes? Or how do I combine rows into one? And you can just simply tell ChatGPT or whatever tool you're trying to accomplish, and then it spits out the formula, or you can even copy the formula directly from there right into your document, and then just like simple stuff like that can save a ton of time.
We can nerd out here for a second. ChatGPT also has the capabilities to generate code. So if you ever, again, you might be going deep then, but we'll talk about it for a second. If you're savvy enough, but your website needs something and you don't want to hire a dev to do it, and it's like a little tweak, you just got to paint like the picture for it. Hey, I need to do this on my site. It's X, Y, and Z. I'm trying to do this. You can go in and then it will literally write the code for you. You can test it, you can see if it works. If it doesn't work, you're going to go back and say, this is the problem, this is the error code that I got. You give it that and it will rewrite your entire script for you again. Again, you have to go back and forth with it, but it's not you hiring a dev anymore. It's you just giving it the error codes that it's shooting you, and then you're modifying it from there. So you can save a lot of time. For those in HubSpot, there's a lot of custom things that you can do that require additional coding and things there. It can help with that as well. You just got to paint a very clear picture of what you want done and how that works. But yeah, that's another good use case for it. Yeah. Anything else?
It's Dev 101. I mean, for all the people that are out there that, have kids that want to be software engineers, hopefully this doesn't just eradicate those careers completely, because everybody will be able to code. But the reality is, hopefully you're understanding that it's sort of like, doing the basics of a lot of different functions for people that have limited resources and capabilities. So it could be your basic, legal type of expert. Doesn't mean you don't need a lawyer if you need a lawyer, but it could come up with legal document type of language to help you. It could be your sort of admin graphic designer if you're looking to design a logo, right? We all know that there's image capability there. I think GPT is already generating video.
Yeah.
In a very limited state.
Very basically, yeah.
But we're moving very quickly here to the point where, I know presentations is another one. A lot of people like to, kind of throw in sort of, create an outline for a presentation. Right now you can create an outline, right? But the day is coming where that entire presentation will be ready to go in Google Slides, in PowerPoint for you automatically. So these are the types of things you kind of think about. A few of us were just in the HR session prior to this. When you think about, I know a lot of you are kind of moonlighting sort of as the de facto HR and finance folks and everything else. Think about just something as simple as creating a job description, right? It could put together the semblance of a job description for you very, very quickly. And in a format that, would check all the boxes for you. Just think about it in terms of it's a tool to be added to, obviously, as Mike has said, take care of a lot of the things that it might come off as lazy, but guess what? It's working smart. It's not lazy.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Have you heard of, or does anybody in here use it as a tool for sponsorship or partnership proposals? Grant writing, anything like that?
Grant writing, arcade.
Yeah.
Government contracts.
I've done proposals, again, to the point.
It's limited.
It will get you there, but make sure you're buttoned up in the spots you need to be buttoned up.
Yep.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Preston talked briefly yesterday about the image capabilities and
Yep.
specifically used the images that you guys have pushed out for like range notes.
Yep.
What are some other examples of how you can use it from a visual perspective as well?
So it's good. I think one thing for this audience, a lot of the images that you'll be wanting are like real people on real golf courses doing real things. Those images still look AI, and I think candidly, if I were to see an AI image of an AI golfer, I'd be like, wouldn't just posted the real one of a real guy or real, right? Like, was it that hard? So I would probably like put that to the side. I think if it's like there's a time and a place for it, right? It's probably not in the majority of your stuff, but if you're looking for, terrible example, what's your dream par 3? Give me a dream par 3, right? Or your dream home golf setup or something like that. Those are appropriate. But I would say like time and place. I have one more here around before that.
Yes, I'm Morten from Players First, and we have implemented this in more than 60 associations worldwide. And the big discussion, especially in the European federations, was security around data. And so basically everything you upload into ChatGPT, OpenAI can use that as training the model. So you just have to be very aware about that. So, and that's kind of one of the main reasons we created this version of ChatGPT that we have, because we're using the enterprise solution that OpenAI cannot use for training. So that it opens up the opportunities for what you can actually upload into the ChatGPT version. So just before you start uploading your financials or whatever data it might be, so it's that you're aware of that security need.
You don't want to make a good replica of yourself from a composite shipping in the robot, right?
Well, it just kind of building on that too. So when you mentioned earlier putting your demographics in, I personally wouldn't put in first name, last name.
No.
Right, so just to protect that data and anything personally identifiable like that. One of the biggest things that we did this year was we built out our knowledge base, and we used AI to kind of scrape the internet, get some sources, rewrite some things, and then built a chatbot around that. Our AI chatbot, the HubSpot AI chatbot, isn't quite there yet. It was blending some articles in a way that was, I think I mentioned this in another session, in a way that was inaccurate. But I'm really looking forward to the day, hopefully in a couple of months, when I can turn that back on and it'll be pretty rock solid.
Really know of an app that AI can help me develop better golf.
There's nothing listening, I think we can get this figured out.
Sign me up.
Right here.
There's some line of questions around the risk of AI. You hear a lot about the security risk, whether it's the personal data, but do you have any comments on that? And how would you help reduce that risk from an employee base, like uploading, right, your membership file with first name, last name, all of that? So are there controls you suggest around that to limit those data risks?
I think it's the conversation got to be had, right? It's at your level. It's not. It'd be the same. Trying to make a different scenario. It'd be the same as doing it on the web, right? Like you can't go to these websites, you can't do these things. You just have that same conversation with AI now, right? It's this point that was made here. Website 30 years ago was like dead, right? It's going to ruin everything, and there's training and protocols and things that have to happen, right? So it's great example. Maybe you ask it to develop an employee program around, hey, what's proper use cases for how to use this, and what do we do and what don't we do, right? I think it's probably a conversation that needs to be had. It'd be the same as if you handed out employee cards to every employee, right? Like you don't put the gym on this is for employee expenses, right? I think it's done at that level, but to talk about like the security risk of it, the point that was made there, it's proud to be a publicly traded company. So when you put it in, you're giving that data away at some level if you're not at a high level too. So it's understanding what the risks are and is the game worth it? Or is there a way that we say, hey, you don't put certain info out there, we just want this, and trust that that happens, right? There's another one, right?
I was just curious if anyone in the room or on the panel knows anything about the board management AIs that are out there. I know there's so many products out there, but like Zek and I can't pronounce the other one, Govinda, or some of those. If anyone has any experience with those, you were talking about presentations, but I think they like make you a whole board presentation now. And I'm just curious about that.
I have not specifically used Zek at Norton's.
Yeah, that's
right. However, I will attest that I've talked to several people, especially call it in the private equity world, that swear by it because of the fact that it does generate those board presentations, and not just board presentations, but anything really investor related, we'll call it IR, investor relations, and makes your life a lot easier. It doesn't necessarily take away from the human, it doesn't take away from the human need to obviously still put your own spin on it, but it is, from what I've heard, Zach in particular, a very, very useful tool to manage your board. I think it's expensive.
It must be because they don't tell you the pricing.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's pretty pricey.
Anything else? Questions, use cases? Well, thank you all. Oh God, Rick.
Are most people using a paid version of an AI tool? Not using like HubSpot or CRM agnostic, but are you using like the paid subscription of ChatGPT or Copilot or Gemini?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's better.
For $20 a month.
Yeah, just figured it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
I use the paid one, yeah.
Yeah, and again, that will shift over time, right? more of the paid features will become free features as there's more, obviously, in the paid funnel. And as more features come out that they roll out for their premium subscribers. So, you know, it's a matter of, yeah, sure, if you wait long enough, you'll have access to all of this. But if you want to sort of stay ahead of the curve to an extent and have more, I'd say, flexibility, for $20 a month, that's what you get.
One last thing I'll mention, and we use this a little bit, it's really, it can be great or it can not be great for market research specific to your area. So a lot of times if I want like golf stats, half the presentations I did, where that came from, I'm not searching the web. So I'll be like, hey, I want NGF stats on golf demographics for this range. It's gonna pull down and give that to me, right? And I say that intently because in your states and your regions, if there's data that you might not know that's out there, it's a better way to access that, right? Like, hey, are there any recent reports on golf in my state? Or talk to me about the outdoor activities that people are doing that are like adjacent to it. It gets you data that you might not have had access to from the traditional sources. So again, fact check it. You need to make sure it's pulling it from that site, but exposes different things that you might not have known about prior to that. That can help you with marketing or membership and wrap her up there too. So, sweet. Well, thank you all so much. Thanks, guys.